Hey everybody, it's Steve Borey here from AmericanCasinoGuidebook.com. Joining me today is my son, Matt Borey, and we're going to talk about tips for high-limit slot players.
How's it going, everybody? And our other guest today is Josh O'Connell from KnowYourSlots.com. He's very, very knowledgeable about slot machines. We have him on all the time to talk about slots. So that's what we're going to do today. And the way we got our topic today was, if you saw any of our recent videos, my dad was just on a 21-day cruise, and he met a guy on the cruise who was playing a penny slot machine and was max betting. Was it $6, $7 a spin, something like that, Dad?
Yeah.
So why don't you dig into this story, Dad? Some backstory before we hop into this video.
Okay. Well, your mom and I were on a cruise. It was a 21-day cruise, and I'd go down to the casino in the morning, and I see this guy who wins a jackpot. He won. It was $9,000. I think it was $9,890 on a penny slot machine. It was a Buffalo slot machine. So I was talking to the guy. I told him about the website, and you know that we have this website with videos about casinos and slot machines, and I noticed he was betting $6 a spin. He was betting the max. So I started talking to him. I say, you'd probably get a lot more value for your play if you moved up in denomination, because you're going to get higher percentage paybacks. But he really wasn't interested. He said he enjoyed playing for pennies. It was his hobby, and he could afford any losses he had. So he didn't want to change. But the other thing is, he said his trip was paid for, of course, because he's a high denomination, high limit slot player. And they comped his cruise and gave his wife some freebies and stuff like that. So he didn't want us to change, but it got me thinking there are probably other players out there like that who could get more value, high limit slot players. So I said, well, we've done a lot of videos on tips for low limit slot players. Let's do one on tips for high limit slot players. So that's how the idea came about, and I figured we'd speak to Josh from KnowYourSlots.com, and let's start with him and just ask you, Josh, how would you define a high limit slot player? Because different people may have different ideas about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the number isn't as obvious as it would have been 10 years ago. And part of the reason for that is the advent of these multi-denomination slot machines that you see all over the place. If you play Lightning Link, Ultimate Fire Link, all of these different games, they have, penny, nickel, dime. And, a penny machine, your bets can get up into the $10 range just on the penny denomination alone. Whereas you could play a 3 real quarter denomination slot for 75 cents, and that would technically be considered a higher denomination machine. So in my mind, I always sort of draw the line above $5 a spin. And the main reason why I do that is because if you sort of look in the high limit room, you're rarely going to find a machine that's going to go below $5 a spin. Now, we've talked about examples on a previous video of sort of exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, usually above $5 a spin is sort of the criteria to get into that high limit room. And so, I think that's a fair number to draw as a sort of a starting point. I know that there's definitely people who play higher and don't consider $5 high limit, but I think for most slot players, above $5 a spin is probably high limit.
Now, as I've said in all our videos that we do with you, my dad and I mostly play video poker. We're not very well versed with slot machines, so that's sort of our go-to advice, is that people should play video poker instead of a slot machine, because like you play a quarter denomination video poker, max bet, that's $1.25 a spin. Even terrible video poker is going to be like 96% and up. It's very easy to bet $1.25 a spin on a penny slot machine, and a penny slot machine is going to be around 88%. So of course that's going to be our tip number one, is going to be to play video poker instead of a slot machine. But I know there's a lot of slot players out there that just don't want to put in the effort to learn video poker, or they just don't like it. Right. So let's get that out of the way. That would be the best advice, would be to not play slot machines. But for those people that still want to play slot machines, like this guy that my dad met, what would be, I guess, the next advice is, the number one advice is going to be to play machines that have a higher payback. And the easiest way to do that would be to go up in denomination, right?
Yeah. So a lot of things are starting to happen now where penny denomination games are being available at a higher denomination and high limit. So a great example of that is Dancing Drums. So Dancing Drums is a single denomination machine. In the penny form, it can go up to $8.80 a spin. Now, you'll usually see it like in the dime denomination and high limit. So that means that the minimum bet with all the gold symbols activated is also $8.80. If you have two identical options like that, where you have a dime denomination version in high limit and you have a penny denomination in low limit, and you can afford that $8.80 spin, you might as well play the higher denomination version, because you have an expectation based on the payback data that's available in various states reporting and is also very easily found on AmericanCasinoGuidebook.com, that you are usually get a better payback as you step up the denominations. You also get access to larger progressives in that case, so that's also another bonus. If you happen to hit a major on the higher denomination, it's going to be a better major than on the penny for the same bet, right? So, there's a few reasons why you would want to step up your bet. So even if you are a quote unquote penny player, that $6 Buffalo player could potentially find a dime denomination $6 bet, and they would just be better for it. So using that to your advantage and based on your bet level is certainly something you can do. And so betting a higher denomination is one way to improve your chances, because you'll have a better payback opportunity on those machines.
But I've told that to people before, and especially people on like Lightning Link or Dragon Link or something like that. And the thing that they like to say is, like if you do happen to get into the bonus round, right? If you're betting like the minimum bet on say nickels versus the maximum bet on pennies, or like it's a higher denomination, but they always say, they're like, well, if I get into the bonus round, the nickels, even though it's 5 times higher, that because it's nickels versus pennies, the amounts that you're going to win in the bonus rounds, they feel are still higher on pennies than they would a penny max bet versus like a nickel low bet. What do you think that is that just like anecdotal, or do you think that's kind of true? Or
I think it's anecdotal, and I'm going to put a hot take, controversial opinion out there. Many people get excited about the flat minis and minors. The flat minis and minors are just replacing a number on the ball, right? If you're playing a $5 penny bet and the mini is $10, a $10 mini is the same thing as a 2x ball, which is very common to get on Lightning Link. So yes, it could say mini, mini, mini. You could also say $10, $10, $10. It's the exact same thing. You're not getting any benefit. It's not a progressive. And so yes, you'll win more minis on that $5 penny bet versus a $5 nickel bet, but it's not changing the overall structure of how Lightning Link works and like how the balls drop. And when you get larger ones versus smaller ones, that's pretty standard across all of the bet levels. So I think people are thinking a little too much into that when it comes to that. But all things otherwise being equal, they're losing out on that higher payback percentage that would generally be expected on that higher denomination.
Now, I have a question going back to denominations here. Traditionally, and this is what I tell people, penny slot machines are going to pay around 85 to 88%. Depending on the casino, where in the country you're playing, the casino's philosophy. So 85 to 88%. But if you're a penny player, and it used to be, well, I guess it started years ago where, the higher the denominator, if you were a nickel player, you could only play, 5 lines for a quarter or something. If you were a quarter player, you'd play, it would go up to $1.25, and then it would go up to $5 and $1. And the higher you went, the more the machine paid back. But since the advent of penny machines, even though and this is one thing I don't quite understand, because the casino, if you're a penny player, whether you're betting 80 cents a spin or $6 a spin, I believe the payback percentage does not change. It's still the lowest in the casino, and that's why Matt and I go, if we have one where you can change the nomination, we'll move up to nickel, because the amount you're going to bet on a nickel machine is not that much more than you're betting on a penny machine, but the payback percentage should be higher. So what are your thoughts on this?
So I got a couple of thoughts on this. So first of all, every manufacturer that I've had the opportunity to speak to has told me that payback percentages on a multi-denomination machine can be set each denomination differently. But that means that within a denomination, it is the same. So to your point, 75 cents versus $6 on that penny, it's going to be the same payback. So you're absolutely right on that. The other thing is casinos can set them to different payback percentages. It doesn't mean they have to. And so you might have a situation where a casino decides, well, I'm going to make 1 and 2 cent be the same, and maybe I'll bump nickel and dime up a little bit, but they're not required to set them to different payback percentages. And so That's why I mentioned the high limit example, because when you have a game in the high limit room, you can generally expect that that one's going to be set up a little bit differently than one on the main floor. And so that's a bit more of a definite in my mind than like just a penny and a dime on the same machine where casinos can do what they want. But I did want to also say one other thing, the 85 to 80% on pennies, I've definitely been seeing some examples of 90%. So it doesn't have to be that low. It really does depend on the philosophy of the company and the casino. For instance, in Connecticut, where I live, one of the casinos has consistently reported 90% payback on pennies going back at least 5 years. So you can pretty much presume that that's sort of their philosophy for pennies on the floor. And that's actually pretty good in my mind, especially to your point, the 85% that can be found in some places.
Now, most people play lower limit slots because they can't really afford higher denominations. But I mean, in this case, this guy was cranking out $6 a spin on a penny machine. That's like a lot of money, you know. So he really, I think it would be in his best benefit to go to a higher denomination and not bet max. But a lot of people just sort of have it in their head that they should always just be betting max credits if they can afford it. Do you think that's true, or would you be better off betting max bet like that? People just have it in. I guess I kind of already touched on this, but like, what do you have to say to the people that think they should always be betting max is, I guess, my question.
So I get the instinct, and certainly there are games out there where you should max bet, and we talked about one on a previous video, Quick Hit, because that's how you get those progressives. But you know, understanding the games that you're playing is in my mind a critical part of making sure you're maximizing your experience at the casino. That's why I have the website that I do. And so no, I don't think you necessarily have to max bet on every machine. And I agree with you that you should definitely understand what's on the casino floor. The reality is I'll admit to this too. Many players who see themselves as penny players may not realize that there are higher denomination options for them. So like I started paying attention to the fact that there were 3 real quarters and 50-cent machines, and realizing, oh, that is in my sometimes bet range. You know, I can do a 75-cent spin or a $1.50 spin, or, you know, 5 quarters for $1.25, as Steve was talking about. You know, and because you think, oh, that's out of reach, it's quarters, it's not pennies, you don't necessarily think about it or look at it or research it or understand it until, you know, one day it just sort of clicks. And so, you know, I do encourage players, even those that are betting $1 a spin, $2 a spin, there are definitely options out there for you. One of my favorite games right now at one of my locals is a 2-credit $1 wild cherry machine, because it's pretty active with the wild cherries that can land above or below the pay line. But you know, $2 a spin isn't that bad. And, you know, compared to what I would play on penny machines, it's pretty equivalent, but I get a lot more action out of it because the machine's just, it's a dollar denomination machine and it's pretty straightforward. So I think people sometimes chase the penny machines because they think that's what they can afford, or maybe it's like the type of game they want to play, but they don't realize they can move up to nickel or dime or even quarter and still get their money's worth out of it.
All right, we were talking about not having to make whether or not you should make max bets, but one of the things that we always tell people is, you know, try not to make a max bet unless you're going to get some benefit for it. So, you know, if you have to bet 5 times your normal bet, and the only thing you're going to do is get a 5 times higher payout, then it's not necessarily worth it. But generally, we tell people you want to bet just enough to cover the pay lines, so you're eligible for a bonus. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's right. And I think most machines are set up that way. So, you know, that's a pretty good rule of thumb as a general rule. There's a few machines that are starting to sneak in this idea that there's a great example. So Buffalo Chief is one of the new Buffalo games that's out there. But if you take a look at like the ×1 line bet versus the ×2, ×3, they're not even increments anymore. So instead of it being like $1, $2, $3, it's more like 80 cents, $1.60, $2.50, which is a little bit more than 3x 80 cents. So they're playing with like the consistency of the features and things like that, and so it's not as clear cut. So if you, for a game like that, you sometimes have to bet more to get more features, which, you know, you sometimes see that as an extra bet, but in this case it's just built in. But yeah, if you're just looking at a clean line 1, line 2, line 3, you don't have any benefit betting 3 versus 1, bet 1. You know, it'll give you more chances to get a bonus or get a big hit versus burning through your bankroll 3 times faster.
Now, we touched on some of the multi-denomination machines earlier, like Lightning Link and Dragon Link. But one thing we didn't really touch on is that, so if you're betting penny on Lightning Link, for example, I went back and looked at one of the videos we had shot the other day. So on Lightning Link, if you're on penny, it has 50 pay lines, right?
Yes.
So the minimum bet is 50 cents. However, if you jump up to nickel, it drops it from 50 pay lines to 25 pay lines. So the minimum bet drops from 50 credits to 25 credits, and 25 nickels is $1.25. So you're only betting like not even 3 times as much, and you're betting just under 3 times as much, and you're going from penny to nickel. So the denomination jumps by 5 times. So you know that the flat bets that you were talking about, the mini and the minor, those jackpots, those are going to jump by 5x, while your bet doesn't jump by 5x. But the max bet on that machine is 10x. So like, do you think somebody would be better off playing the penny denomination on that with a 10x bet for $5? Or if they go to nickel, there's no 4x to make it the same. But if you went to nickel and did like the 3x bet or the 5x bet with nickels, which on 25 lines, which would make it 375 or 625 a spin. So you couldn't get an exact, but do you think somebody would be better betting $5 a spin max on penny, or going down to the 3x or 5x and betting right around that same $5 on nickels?
So two things to cover there. So one is that you have a volatility difference, right? Because when you have 25 pay lines versus 50, you're hitting half as often. And so that means that you won't have as many winning spins, but when you do, because it's relative to your bet, they're going to be better wins because there's not as much on the line, literally on the pay lines for that particular spin. Then you also have the denomination difference, which should mean a better payback. So I would personally recommend the 25 line because I think you're going to have a better opportunity there, even with, with a little bit better payback over time. But, I can understand those who might prefer more pay lines because they'll have more chance, it lowers the volatility, makes it more likely you're going to get a line hit. So, that's a little tougher because, that you can get bled pretty fast with less pay lines if you're just not lining them up on the right places, versus a 50 line game where you have more, like you might have picked it up on a line that's not there on the nickel. So, I think there's a little bit of a preference there, but like my recommendation would always be, if you can afford it, to do the higher denomination.
To go back to my guy on the cruise ship. Now he said he was getting these free cruises and gifts for his wife because obviously, if you're paying penny slots, you got a high house edge, and they're going to treat you very nicely. But I was trying to get the guy to go up higher in denomination. But here was my thought for if I was a higher limit slot player like this guy, I think this is what I would try to do, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. I certainly wouldn't be playing penny slots. I'd go up to maybe $1, because he was betting $6 a spin. I'd go up to dollar machines, maybe a $5 max bet, or quarter machines, or even nickel machines. Even nickel machines are going to be higher payback percentage than penny machines. But to try and take advantage of the comping system, I think I would look for low volatility machines, which would be ones where they don't have, you're going to win 50,000 credits. You have to look at the pay table and see if they have some of these rarer hands that pay huge amounts. So there's a lot of volatility in those. I think I would try and find a lower game with much more even payouts. Nothing huge, but that would keep me consistently in the game, and I'd be able to keep racking up these points to earn more comps. So that was one of my tips that I wanted to give this guy. But let me hear your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, so most of my cruising experience to date has been on Royal Caribbean. That's the cruise line I've done most of mine, and I get comped cruises, and I'm not a $6 player. So you also don't have to be a $6 bet player to get comped cruises. Let's start there. But Royal's program is dollars in per point, so it's very straightforward. So if you are playing a higher limit game with a higher payback, you're earning points at the same pace as if you are in a penny machine. When you're in that scenario, when it's very clear cut how that works and how they're doing that I agree with you 100%, because that moving to a higher denomination, moving to a lower volatility machine where you can have a more even ride and not have like a risk of ruin very quickly, is going to give you the best chances at earning the maximum number of points and maximizing your earnings potential. Because once you get the cruise vouchers, there's sometimes the ability to get free play or onboard credit when you go above and beyond your number. And so those can be just like bonuses. So now you not only have your cruise, but you have extras on the cruise. If they're doing a Theo-based system, which certainly some casino programs do, obviously it's going to be less beneficial because they're going to know the Theo on that machine is lower. And so they're not going to reward you as strongly for that play, but it gets made up for by more play, right? So I think it starts to even out in those situations. But as I said, with Royal, it's not a Theo-based system. And so I would say do exactly as you describe, higher denomination, lower volatility machines. I know I certainly, if I'm getting beat up, I will focus in on those to try to get my point count up. And so, yeah, I definitely think that that's good advice for those who are, and that's the same for casinos, land-based casinos that are, just dollars per point based systems. Like, Caesars is very clear. It's, $5 per point. So, if you play a lower Theo machine, you play a lower volatility machine, you're definitely going to find yourself in a better situation point wise at the end of that trip.
The NCL cruise we are on, it was a similar system. $5 in on a slot was 1 point. But when we play at the Hard Rock in Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino near where we're located, theirs is a different system because you earn comps based on the Theo on the machine. So again, that was good that you pointed that out. Two different kinds of systems.
Yep.
Okay, now I guess the last question I have for you, what would be your number one best tip for high limit slot players?
Very different from everything we've talked about, but I would say make sure you're playing at a level that matches your bankroll. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they bet above their bankroll. So let's say you go into the high limit room with $200 and you start playing a $10 slot machine. That means you may have as few as 20 tries to make something happen. And that's probably not enough. And so, it can be tempting to take, cash into the high limit room and like, oh, maybe lightning will strike. And sure, it could, but, odds are probably going to be against you in that situation. The same thing, like if you have $50 free play, oh, I have a lot of free play, let me run to the high limit room. I don't recommend that because, you're just blowing your bankroll really quickly and you're giving the casino an easy opportunity to just take all your money. But if you have $1,000 and you're going in and you're doing, $10 a spin, now you have 100 tries, it's going to be a very different sort of feel because it gives you more chances to sort of rebound if you have a dearth of winnings. So that's my number one recommendation for those who are looking at high limit.
We were at the Hard Rock yesterday filming, and we were in the high limit room because we were playing $125 a spin on video poker. And I saw that happen there. They had the Lightning Link. They had a bank of Lightning Link machines that were 10-cent denomination minimum. A guy sat down and put $60 into it. And I think it was like $5 a spin minimum. And I was like, I'm not sure.
Well,
I didn't say anything to him, but I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm not sure that's the best idea in the world.
Well, now that you're saying this, Matt, you're reminding me, I was listening to Josh and I was laughing about this because Matt had this brilliant idea that had $1 million slot machine. Tell him what happened there, Matt.
Well, it was $1 million. What were we ended up betting? It was $25 a spin.
It's $25 a spin.
Yeah, it's a dragon.
Let's take a shot. Let's take a shot. The jackpot was $1.18 million.
And it was a Dragon Link machine. It was I think it was quarter minimum, and it was $25 a spin. And I put in, what was it, $200, $500, and gone in like 3 minutes.
No, I think it took all of 5 minutes for it to disappear.
Oh, excuse me, 5 minutes. Yeah.
So I wish we had done this video before Matt had that idea.
Yeah, I mean, and look, it can go the other way. I think
It
10
can.
or 15 years ago, I was with my parents at Foxwoods, and my mom was wandering around looking for a machine, and she walks up to this machine and she starts to sit down to play it. My dad's like, that's a $5 denomination machine. And she's like, oh, I can't afford that. So I put $20 in it just for the heck of it. And I built it to $80. And she turns to my dad's like, see, I would have won. But, it's one of those things where, like, of course it's a slot. You can win or you could lose. But, the way that slots are designed are to pay out over time, over lots and lots of spins, right? So, you can have a dearth of spins. You can also have like bonus after bonus back to back. And so, you need to smooth that out a little bit by making sure you have enough attempts. And so, if your goal is literally to hit and run, fine, put the $100 in and do the $5 or $10 spins, and you can certainly have your shot at that. But if your goal is to get some actual time and enjoyment and play for a while, then you need to factor that into your per spin budget.
Well, I think Matt's goal was to win $1.18 million. And
now, Dad, in my defense, we did do the same thing on that $125 a spin machine. We put in what, $1,100 or $1,200 on video poker at $125 a spin, which was not even 10 spins if we lost it all, and we won $1,000. Thank you very much.
We did, but with 100 play video poker, you know you're not going to lose your $125 on one spin, which could easily happen on slot machines. But
Right.
anyway, that's a whole different area. Josh, you as always have given us great information, and tell people more about your site if they want to learn more about you.
Absolutely. So as the week we're taping this is actually the 3rd anniversary of the site, I just hit 1,100 posts. I post something every
Ah.
single day at knowyourslots.com. And you'll also find me on social media, which is Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. It's Know Your Slots, all one word.
All right, Josh, it was great talking to you today, and thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on any of our other great videos.
Yeah, thanks for watching, and best wishes for good luck in the casinos.